Hi there. Here to give you a little bit of background information on Tennessee Williams, a really important playwright and kind of mid 20th century, um, really well known. And also give you some points about a streetcar named Desire. So let's talk about Tennessee first. So, things going on with him in general. He was born of a Southern family, uh, no big surprise, and he comes from a a minister's family's background on his mother's side that was very proper and very established, has that kind of Southern gentility that we may be familiar with, and on the father's side he was rough, alcoholic, um, had problems that kind of created this, if you want to call it, domestic tension in the house. And in some ways, his plays do play out a little bit like confessional poetry or domestic poetry. You see a lot of friction between relationships and various degrees of dysfunction as well. Um, he was quite sickly as a youth, um, physically fragile, and that also contributed, I think, to a lot of his work. You will often see people that are physically frail in some way or another. A Glass Menagerie occurs to me too. I think Streetcar is better than Glass Menagerie. Glass Menagerie, you sometimes will see anthologized in high school because it's a little safer and it kind of uh, avoids or does not, explore themes of kind of interrelational, violence, um, the way Streetcar does in some ways. Now, we can certainly call him a regionalist too, because he does use very vivid colloquial Southern speech in his works. Um, and he does use symbols again and again. And he uses them in a way to express emotional states. And one thing you may notice is that, there are a lot of very detailed stage directions where there are, different light patterns going on, or that there is a certain piece of music playing. The the name of it's escaping, the Varsuviana, right? And in a way, these are what we could call expressionist moments. In other words, they help to express the inner state of the main character of the play, Blanche Dubois. Now, Blanche Dubois is an incredibly flawed character, as you will find. And despite all his brilliance, he did descend into drugs in order to keep his writing production up and also to forget or try to manage or cope with uh, the memories of an unhappy family life and also, certain kinds of social challenges that he dealt with. He was also gay and from a very proper Southern relationship, Southern family on one side of his family. So there's a lot of repression and a lot of judgment that he was trying to work through as well. And he wins the Pulitzer for Streetcar. And Streetcar, it's a fantastic play. Not always an easy play, though. And there's another picture of him. And why do I just put pictures of people like in suits? I don't know. I like suits, I guess. I think the other part too is sometimes seeing a person as they present themselves tells you a bit about who they are, or who they wish to be or who they want to be seen as. And so there is a certain sense of formality and attention to detail and refinement to Tennessee Williams. And you'll often see that kind of tension going on. Refinement versus brute force, or refinement versus desire, which may not be proper, may not be approved of in some circles. And we certainly see this in Streetcar Named Desire. I'll go to this other picture. I don't know why. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Blanche Dubois is a very flawed character. She has some problems relating to her youth, and also to a marriage that went sour for reasons I'm not going to give away. I want to talk about it, but I don't want to give you spoilers. And her inability to deal with that, and her inability to reconcile what her life is like, what her family is like, um, is an ongoing theme in the play. Blanche comes to live with her sister Stella. Stella is married to Stanley Kowalski, and there we see the kind of coarse, almost animalistic force embodied in his character there. And at the same time, there is some kind of attraction in some ways between Stanley uh, and Blanche, but Stanley clearly has real problems as well. So it's kind of a Southern Gothic uh, tragedy in some way, kind of unraveling in slow motion. But it also does bring to mind many different important themes in the postbellum South, especially post World War II, and those are themes of, say, appearance versus reality, manners and polite society versus um, desire, authenticity, and things of that nature. And Blanche comes off as a full-on snob in so many scenes. She thinks she's so much better, um, and yet at the core there is something that is fundamentally broken inside of her, and she doesn't know how to be honest about it, and she doesn't know how to uh, come to terms with it and to get to a place of healing. And in some ways, I'm going to put this out there, in some ways, Blanche Dubois is symbolic of the South itself after World War II. Um, the nation is moving towards desegregation quickly. The, the certain social structures that were considered inviolable and eternal in some ways before the Civil War uh, are crumbling and changing, and Blanche in some ways shows that continued devolvement and degradation of the grand old South. So in some ways, it's very much an elegiac play as well. Remember, I used that term with Faulkner. Elegiac means, is it's the adjective form of elegy, which means, a sense of mourning for something or someone who has passed. It's an expression of mourning. And I'm not saying everything in the South needs to be mourned. That's clearly not the case. And we all know that now. Things are hard to let go of for some people, and I think that's definitely the case in this play. The one last thing I will say about this is that this play takes place in New Orleans. I talked a little bit about New Orleans already, with Kate Chopin. And New Orleans is a very interesting place because it does have a sense of culture and history and propriety, but it also is this place of, kind of powerful id forces. There's a certain revelry and kind of embrace of one's desires and one's wants in that particular city too. And that's still true today in a lot of ways. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's a great eating town. Cajun food is some of the best food around. The Creole tradition is also very, very, very good. I also would like you to think about, see how I'm getting rid of New Orleans. I could talk about New Orleans all day. Not a fan of Bourbon Street. Even when I was of that age, Look, if you want to go to a big old frat party in the South, that's Bourbon Street, kind of. It's not my thing. The last thing I will have you think about is the idea of the streetcar. A streetcar named Desire takes its name from an actual streetcar that was in New Orleans. There was a Desire line. So think about how that particular uh, metaphor travels through its line, if you want to say, throughout the play. Okay, and Stanley even mentions at one point when he tells Stella to get off her high horse. Who gets on the streetcar of desire, when and for what reasons, and how can they or do they get off the streetcar? Anyway, I hope you enjoy the play. Really revel in the language. One of the things that Williams is really known for is his mastery of dialogue and exchange. And when you combine that with his use of colloquialisms and phrasing of that period and of that region, it's a real artistic treat. A lot of you already know, too, there is a Simpsons episode where Marge stars in a musical version of A Streetcar Named Desire. Why you wouldn't want to make this into like a jazzy musical's part of the gag, really. And she plays Blanche. And it's called A Streetcar Named Marge. You may want to check it out after you've read the play. Simpsons is on Hulu now. I don't know what other services. Besides the point. Anyway, I said it before and I'll say it again. Hope you enjoy the play, and I'll talk to you soon.